Hello, this is DC Hammer, and this is the DC Hammer Show. And yes, I've been reporting on the pollution that's created by India and Communist China, the Red Dragon. But this scene that you're seeing right here, coming to you from ChinaNews.net, is not a scene from the Sahara Desert in a sandstorm, or Northern California with a forest fire behind them started by a DEW, directed energy weapon. No, this is a picture coming to you from a normal day as school children are walking in Kuala Lumpur. So the coal addiction that has stricken Asia continues to choke its citizens, and over the past year, the patients treated each day in a hospital unit where there's a cardiologist who treats these conditions has doubled. So a year ago, he would get 50 patients a day, and now he's getting 100 patients a day. So this is in Jakarta, Indonesia. That's near where that picture was taken, and the burning of these fossil fuels in an unclean way, unlike in the United States, where we dig and burn clean coal by using advanced technology. In Asian countries, they merely pull it out of the ground, throw it in, start it on fire, and put the pollutants into the air. So once again, I say I want a House of Representatives Commission chaired by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to give up on their Soylent Green New Deal and instead spend a fraction of that $93 trillion that they would spend trying to make us tiptoe towards 1 inch worth of cleaner air, while the rest of the world, especially Asia, continues to pump out the pollution like there's no tomorrow. And if you believe people like Al Gore and Ocasio-Cortez, there is no tomorrow. But why aren't they putting their energy where it's needed? And don't forget Vietnam, that bustling metropolis of Hanoi, which now has reemerged as one of the Asian giants. A lot of manufacturing going on there, a lot of goods being sold around the world that used to be made in China are now being made in Vietnam, and they are suffering the same issues. They are not putting the money into preventing pollution. They are putting the money into wealth generation, but in an irresponsible way. So as we continue to be a leader on the planet on responsible capitalism and doing things in the manufacturing environment that are balanced in places like China, India, Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines, they continue to do things the old-fashioned way. Ocasio-Cortez, paging Ocasio-Cortez, your flight for Hanoi is boarding now. And a few weeks ago, I reported on the fact that the Russians are building an offensive missile system, intercontinental ballistic missile system. And at the same time, while everybody's been sleeping, the Washington Free Beacon reminds us that the Pentagon has been conducting successful missile defense intercept tests. And the inception of this technology goes back to the Strategic Defense Initiative that was started by President Reagan back in the 80s and was poo-pooed by the press and demeaned as Star Wars. We are continuing on. We are going to a next generation of ground-based interceptor missiles capable of destroying those little Russian rascals if they try to dump their missiles on our heads. So far the system is working exactly as proposed. We are putting some money now that President Trump has dedicated the resources in order to build our military. Much of that technology expense is going into protecting ourselves from the potential onslaught of not only missiles from Russia, but also missiles from North Korea. And even though North Korea is denuclearizing and we are working in that direction, it's one of those trust but verify, or the best off, in this case, the best offense is a good defense. And Pamela Geller is reporting through the Geller Report. This may be a shock to many people, but the state of Minnesota, with a large city by the name of Minneapolis, which I call Mogadishu on the Mississippi, has now, their Senate, the state Senate, has banned cell phones while driving, except for Muslims wearing hijabs. Let me start over again. In the United States, in Minnesota, they have now passed legislation that dictates that the only people that can use their cell phones while they're behind the wheel driving are Muslims wearing their hijabs. So, the legislature in Minnesota is following Sharia law, is implementing Islamic supremacism. They voted 56-10 to advance a bill that had been passed through the House. It's SF 91, and the Senate has added an amendment that exempts the hijab-wearing Muslims from the application of that no cell phones while you're driving law. So I'm sure you'll be happy that this may be coming to a state near you. I wouldn't be surprised if California wouldn't be next, since California loves to be on the front edge of everything on the wrong side of the left pole. So as these Muslims in their hijabs will be merrily driving down the road, distracted not only by the fact they can barely see out of the slit in their wardrobe, but also by the fact that they can freely go ahead and call their families and other ones. And so as the insurance companies are going to have to deal with how they do rates, as there's definitely going to be an uptick in driving accidents as a result of this kind of one-sided legislation. And wouldn't you think there would be some kind of a discrimination lawsuit possible here when you've carved out one very thin slice of people within a jurisdiction and allowed them to do something that all others are forbidden to do? This is Sharia coming to the United States, and I would not be surprised to see some extreme legal challenges to a piece of flawed legislation like this, but who knows? And while we're talking about the possibility of something like that, a law so one-sided and obviously inappropriate / unconstitutional being passed in the state of Minnesota, as President Trump continues to try to balance the judicial landscape left-right in the state of California, he has now quietly pushed forward with a fourth nomination for a judge for the Ninth Circuit, the most out-of-control leftist circuit court system in the country. And now Bridget Bade was confirmed 78-21 on Tuesday by the Senate, and she will be taking up her post in the Ninth Circuit Court soon. And President Trump continues to fulfill one of his campaign promises to put conservative judges on the bench. Well done, Mr. President. Coming to us from the Daily Signal is a report that postulates on the future. They're doing a little bit of prophesying here. What the Mueller report revealed, so that's the background to what they're going to talk about here, and what's coming next. So yes, once again, thank you, Mr. President, for pushing forward and persevering for 2 years with all of the promises that you had made to the public, but at the same time being viciously attacked on a daily basis by the Marxist screaming media with a pack of lies pushed forward by the person that actually thought she was going to defeat you at the polls in November of 2016. And when she failed, they hauled out the insurance policy, but the insurance policy has been canceled. So, Special Counsel Mueller pushed out his final report Friday last. Over the weekend, AG Barr took a look at it with his buddy Rod Rosenstein, Deputy Attorney General, and they both signed off on the fact that there was not only no collusion between Trump and Russia, there was no obstruction that the White House used in order to prevent the investigation from going forward. And now we need to think about where we are headed next. The leftists in the Marxist screaming media and the Democrat Party are naturally losing what's left of their minds, which wasn't much, but they are now coming up with all kinds of retorts to this action that completely exonerated President Trump and every single person that the Mueller team had gone after. And since now it's been proven this entire fiasco was a hoax, I say pardon Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, pardon George Papadopoulos. I believe there should be restitution for the likes of Dr. Jerome Corsi and Carter Page. And of course, all of those individuals can continue with lawsuits or criminal action against the mobsters, the thugs that attacked them for this last 2 years. But I think on top of that, there should be action taken by the President of the United States in order to reverse these actions that were taken against these people who were either in Lieutenant General Flynn's case pleading to something he really didn't do, wasn't a violation of law, but he was doing it so they would stop going after his son and other members of his family. And George Papadopoulos, who was just a novice and didn't understand the tidal wave of insanity that was going to come after him as he tried to just participate as an advisor to the Trump campaign, and that he was then set up and knocked down by the left as they attempted to destroy President Trump before he even became President Trump and after he became President Trump. So, there are different opinions about whether that Mueller report should be completely released. There is no requirement that Attorney General Barr release anything more than what he's already released. A report from a special counsel goes to the Attorney General. It is then up to the Attorney General to decide how to proceed. If there is a call for action as far as indictments and pursuing legal action, criminal action against anybody, that is for the Attorney General then to push forward. If there is no reason to do that, as is this current case, then a report alone just to the AG is required, and anything he does beyond that, whatever he does to make the Congress aware of the results, whatever he does to make the public aware of the results, are completely up to him. So, but President Trump and AG Barr seem to be very willing to allow the results of this report and Attorney General Barr's conclusions, as he has now notified the Congress and the public with a 4-page statement. After this point, it's completely up to AG Barr, but I think he may release more, and President Trump again has said that he's willing to have the entire report that Special Counsel Robert Mueller produced be made completely public. So we'll see how this goes. And now, since it's been proven that this was an entire hoax to begin with, in other words, there was no Trump-Russia collusion, then how can you obstruct a crime that didn't exist? So, once again, President Trump exonerated himself. There is no collusion. There is no obstruction. And after this, the abuses of the Department of Justice and the FBI, the unprofessional conduct, the shady behavior, it appears that people like Senator Lindsey Graham are not going to let that go. And the Judicial Watch with Tom Fitton are not going to let issues like that go. And so I would think that you can look to additional action being taken. There are calls for a second special counsel. I don't know if you want to get into that again, but of course that second counsel will be given the mandate to actually look at the other side of the issue involving what took place instead of just President Trump's side of things. So, is it possible that Lady Justice will be redeemed, that we will return to equal justice under the law, that criminal referrals that have already been made regarding Andrew McCabe for lying to the FBI and taking other action to try to bring down a legitimately elected president of the United States? And there are people in Trump's inner circle that are counseling him that it is time now to investigate the investigators, people like James Comey and others that were complicit to this coup, had participated in this wrongful action. We'll see how this unfolds over the days and weeks and months to come, hopefully not years. Thank you for watching. God bless. And now the DC Hammer Show is available as an audio podcast. Just go to Podcast Garden or iTunes and search for DC Hammer or News Narrative Analysis Associates, NNAA.